Alright everyone, it is the final day. We have two kits left to cover, the Gold Dynamo, I already talked about this obviously, and the Machine Neo, and then we're done. I might talk about the maps a bit. If you guys want to see it, please let me know in the comments, because they do look like there's going to be some interesting stuff to them, but obviously there's a very limited amount we have to break down. So if you guys want a second channel video on that, let me know, and I'll also probably talk about my patch hopes. A lot will be repetitive probably, but there's some new stuff there for sure. And I think it's going to be a very important change, especially right before the PAX NA Championships happening in about a week from now. So perhaps I'll talk about those if you guys want. Just be sure to let me know. And of course, I will watch those live as well on the main channel probably. Regardless, today we're going to cover the last two kits. Let's start with the Gold Dynamo Roller. Now, I have gone on record saying that I don't think Gold Dynamo will be better than the Vanilla Dynamo, because I think the Vanilla Dynamo's kit is just so good right now with the Spock coolers in, and I think Sprinkler is even fine on it right now as a whole, especially because this weapon very much benefits from a movement tool. And I think it needed like Fizzy Bomb plus Crab or Booyah to be better. Like, that was about it, because of the flexibility those specials provide, the utility they provide, and Fizzy Bomb being the best sub for this weapon probably, outside of maybe Burst Bomb. Instead, we got Splat Bomb again, which is fine. We haven't actually gotten a Splat Bomb weapon in a while. There's still 9 of them, you know, second highest next to this thing, which is going to be on 10 weapons next update. Just, ow. But, you know, it's fine. Splat Bomb is still, obviously, a very good sub. Being able to poke bombs at things like chargers, if they're close enough, or other mid-range weapons, is good when you can't get your flicks off, but for Dynamo it's much more committing to doing that or only having a few flicks after due to the ink efficiency. So more ink hungry stuff isn't as strong on something like Dynamo, but it's totally fine, you know, it's a bomb. It's still quite good, I don't think anyone's gonna complain. But the thing that's gonna affect its playstyle is Super Chump. Yep, we got another chump weapon in this update. And I think Super Chump on it is actually a pretty strong combination for zones. Chump's biggest strength is that compared to every other special, it probably paints the most. So if you chump a zone, and you're a Dynamo player, you're painting the zone, you refilled your ink tank near instantly, these all paint on their landing, then they all explode and paint again if people don't shoot them down, you know. That's a lot of extra paint while you're flicking away at the objective. That's going to make it very hard for teams to be able to hold zone. And on top of that, it's still a totally sufficient entry tool to be able to get you and your team in. I would say it's actually a pretty good kit. Chump could be a little bit stronger, obviously, but let's be honest, the main thing that's weak right now is this, not the kit. Splat Bomb Chump on any solid weapon would have reasons to be picked in competitive play as long as the synergy was there. The reason this is hard to see is because it is on the Dynamo. I mean, let me put it in perspective this way. This kit that so many people complained about is literally in the meta on this weapon. And yeah, it's a backline. Sprinkler on backline is very good, usually. Like, I think people forget that there's 2 good backlines with Sprinkler in this game, you know, that have been pretty consistent and stable in the meta. So, you know, it's fine for that. But, I mean, it's the same kit. It's been good on a good main weapon. Sniper Art is very strong. Not so much here. I think Dynamo needs buffs. I've talked about it before. Stance hasn't changed. Vertical Flick needs its own sense of identity. I think it should be minimum 70 damage. At the very least, it should be a 2-shot. Being able to threaten that would be good, or give it way more range. And I mean way more range if it's going to do 40 damage. Horizontal needs to paint better, and I think Dynamo's one-hit kill range should be a little bit further on both. But at the very least, if I were to pick one change for this weapon, actually it'd be 2 changes, I can't pick. Fix vertical, bit of extra paint. And I think the weapon will be in a good spot. And it's, you know, it's good to see it's got another kit. So, you know, more chances for it to find a niche to be used. Maybe we'll see it on some zones maps, you know. I have seen Gray doing a little bit of the Vanilla Dynamo on Zones Humpback. Very strong map mode for Dynamo. So maybe we'll be able to see it a little bit on some niche zones maps. But, you know, I hope for a little bit more. Next up is Machine. Now, I didn't really think Machine was going to get a better kit than this one. Like with GooTuber, it kind of has one of the best kits it could get. The only reason to suspect it could be a bit more different is this is 220p. A new kit is probably going to be 200, 210, maybe even 190 if it doesn't have a painting sub. You know? That's a lot of possibility for something that'll have a bit cheaper special. We got a very cool hybrid kit, in my opinion. Now, Point Sensor is the sub. Sensor is whatever on this weapon. It's not the worst thing ever. And if this was pre-patch Machine, I don't even think I'd be complaining too much, because I think it does actually work pretty well for what Machine wants to do. The problem is, ever since they nerfed Machine's fire rate, it really needs stuff to help its kill time. This thing went from a solid kill time to a very slow one for its range, especially if you are not hitting directs, where you have that extra 10 frames of delay. It's just quite a lot. And so having a sub that can help your kill time is now very important on this weapon. And without it, you really gotta have some very useful perk. Now, Sensor does have one. It has one reason to think it might be solid, which is if you run Sensor, you can run Opening Gambit. Now, Opening Gambit is an ability that gives you 3 mains worth of swim speed, run speed, intensify action, and ink resistance. Now, the intensify doesn't really do anything on this thing. You know, I mean, I guess it's nice, but, like, don't really have jump RNG problems. And you don't spam squid roll on it. However, run speed stacks very well on this thing. Swim speed is very important for this weapon with the damage, with the fire rate nerf, since you need to be able to, you know, space around and get more hits off. And ink res is very nice for this thing. On top of that, Point Sensor assists count toward the Opening Gambit. So, if you Point Sensor someone and they die, that counts as an assist in an extra 15 seconds. So if you run a really aggressive comp with it, it is very reasonable to be able to keep Opening Gambit up for most of the match with Machine. And that's in general been a lot easier to do with Opening Gambit ever since they buffed the... or ever since Cooler entered the meta, because Cooler has allowed people to fight more, and so it's much easier to get kills or assists. Like, more frequently, especially in the opening when you get 2 fights. So Opening Gambit has been something we've kind of seen, like with Melothon Shot. And Machine doesn't really need too much gear, so it's okay for you to risk that main ability on this weapon, and I think it's something that might actually be worth using. So, I think that would be its kind of niche. I think it would be Opening Gambit Machine, and you play kind of like a Rapid with some fall off behind walls. That's kind of how Machine plays right now, is less of a Slayer and more of a mid-range chip damage weapon. And I think in order to keep up with something like Rapid, it needs that speed. And so, Opening Gambit gives this thing a lot of potential. The special is Trizooka. Trizooka is very good right now. I underestimated just how much the buff would help this thing. At first, I ranked it at like A or S tier. I think this would be S+ or potentially even X. I think this is easily top 5, potentially top 3 in the game. In fact, I would go so far as to say it probably needs a little bit of changes, but that's a topic for another time. Trizooka is very good right now, especially for backless comps, which is probably what this thing is going to be running in, if you think about it. This might be one of the longest range weapons in its comp. If that's the case, then Zuka is very valuable even more so for backless comps. You need stuff like Crab and Zuka that can give you a temporary backline for that situation where you need it. And so having another option for Zuka is very good for these comps. Now, unfortunately, backless comps want a lot of bombs because, again, you don't have range. But it might be okay for one weapon to not have it. We've seen that just fine in the past, it just tends to be a beacon weapon. But I think this case might be working. So for me, if I'm going to see Machine Neo, I think it's going to be Opening Gambit with backless comps. Most likely. And it's going to play kind of like a Rapid, and it's going to be very weird. I think that'll be interesting. Probably not something I will personally try, but yeah. I do think, though, and I'll say this here, if the new kit doesn't see a lot of use either, and Machine still tanks off the cliff, I think they should buff it back a little bit. Not fully, but give it like 2 frames out of the 5 they took it away, maybe. You know, some middle ground might be a bit healthy, because I think out of all the weapons they've nerfed in the previous seasons, I think this one was overkill. You could argue Stamper, but I think Stamper is more the fault of Zipcaster dropping off than the main weapon changes. I think those are healthy. I think this thing was probably over-nerfed, and if the new kit can't give it that weird rapidish playstyle of opening Gambit, which is already pretty situational, then I think it's safe to say that it could use a bit of bust back to its power. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Are we going to see opening Gambit backless machine neocomps? Maybe. I don't know, we'll see. I think it'll be cool to try, though, so I'll probably try to play with someone giving it a shot. Maybe doing, like, some machine range stuff. We'll see. Alright, bye.